Hi.
Hey.
So first, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Can you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for chatting. I've been busy the past few days. So my name is Jacquie Cornell. I work for a company called 1906, and I am their Chief of Policy and Health Innovations, which is a fancy title for like, I do everything, a little bit of everything, as it relates to policy and as it relates to cannabis consumption for health outcomes.
Amazing. So you guys are opening a dispensary.
We are trying to. So currently, right now, we are headquartered in Colorado. We have products on the shelves in Oklahoma, and we should be in Illinois, Massachusetts, and Maryland Q4. So right now and into Q1 of next year. Like many companies, we have been sort of in this stalemate to get a license in the state of New Jersey. So a little bit of background, if that is cool, and kind of give people a context of what's going on here, right?
Totally.
So I also get to kind of talk about this with my former hat on. So I worked at the New Jersey Department of Health. I oversaw one of my programs was the medicinal marijuana program. So I sort of understand this from the state side, and I also now understand it from inside the industry. The first sort of medicinal marijuana program, the first iteration, had only 6 licenses. It was left to sort of wither on the vine by Governor Christie. Governor Murphy comes in, third day on the job, and says, we got to do better than this, right? So in 2018, they did what's called an RFA, request for applications, for 6 additional vertically integrated licenses. Vertically integrated licenses means you do everything soup to nuts. You grow it, you process the cannabis, and then you run a dispensary. The state awarded those 6 additional licenses, and we went from 6 to 12 licenses in the state. Then in 2019, at that point, I had already left state government and joined 1906. There was another RFA. This one much more expansive, allowed for a whole lot more licenses to kind of address how popular this has become for medicinal use, and also with the foresight that adult use, some way, whether through a ballot initiative or through the legislature, was going to come to pass. And these licenses were different in that they allowed for vertically integrated, so grow the cannabis, process the cannabis, and run a dispensary, or for standalones. So you saw tons of folks apply just to run dispensaries or just to grow cannabis. And so kind of allowed for a diversity of the market. Unfortunately, that entire process is tied up in a lawsuit, and nothing has happened and nothing has been awarded. And that lawsuit started in December of 2019. And here we are 11 months later, almost 12 months later, with nothing changing. So we still are left with 12 licenses for the entire state. And we can get into what that means in a bit. But that's a bit of background just to kind of give context, because I think a lot of people are just not even aware where we stood prior to legalization, and then legalization happened. So I want to give the background.
So I'll just start from the top. First question, will there be any dispensaries opening up soon? How long should we expect until they do?
So I wish that there were easy answers to these questions. So let's walk through what happens. Maybe that's a good way to kind of do this. The people voted overwhelmingly, right? We want adult use cannabis. What will likely happen, and this has been the case in many states that have gone from a medicinal program to a medicinal and an adult use program, is that the state will come in and say to the existing medicinal operators, here's a threshold of product that you have to keep on your shelves, set aside for patients, right? Because this is their medicine. And then anything that you produced in excess of that threshold, you can sell to adult use consumers, right? So I think we'll see the existing operators hopefully get satellite locations and things like that. But how many new licenses come on, how many new dispensaries pop up, and the timeline for that will be dictated by a commission that has yet to be seated. So again, this is why elections matter. This is why who sits in seats of power in Trenton matters. Legislators passed a bill in 2019, the Jay Koenig bill, that created this Cannabis Review Commission. And this commission will have 5 members on it. And those individuals, along with staff, are tasked with figuring out how many dispensaries, where they'll be, what's the process for opening them, how many growers there will be. We could have all the dispensary, we could have a dispensary in every town, right? We have 500 dispensaries. There's not enough cannabis to fill those dispensaries, it doesn't matter. So this is also about what does the canopy look like? That's the sort of word we term out for like the full grow of the state. That has to be happening too, because if all that happens is dispensary licenses and no one's growing anything and processing and lab testing, right, all of these products, you could have all these dispensaries with empty shelves. Right. So it's going to be sort of a process to both ramp up grow, right, seed to sale. The fastest you can put a seed in the, seed in a pod and manifest that into an actual sellable product, maybe 5 months, and that's pushing it. And assuming that's no crop failures, everything goes perfect, like there's no hiccups. So that alone, right, is the nature, literally the nature of growing a plant, coupled with all of the hurdles on the actual licensing side of the house.
Yeah, I mean, people want to know, like, I've got a bunch of questions for timelines, like when can we go buy it? What are the anticipated timelines? How long will it take? I got maybe 30 questions like that.
Yeah. So I think, the way it works is theoretically the legislature will pass a piece of legislation that enacts, right, this ballot question. And that January 1st, things will start to take action, and that the existing dispensaries can start to fill, that hole. But if they run out of product, right, and we saw this in Massachusetts, we saw this in Illinois, there are states you can look to say, like, all right, what might happen? My hunch is that, yeah, we'll try to do everything, the existing 12 will do everything that they can, but unless you're talking about football fields size worth of grows in short order, we're a dense, populous state. Like, we're going to sell out of product,
It's going to take time.
It's going to take time.
Somebody said, wondering if there will be regulations like cigarettes, i.e. smoking in certain places, etc.
Yes. So what will happen very likely is that there'll be what'll be considered consumption spaces, where you can go and purchase a product and consume it on site. And then there'll be, as there is with anything, the sort of same clean smoking laws that exist around the country and around the state. I think what remains to be seen is what happens with non-smokable product, right? That's the company I work for. We do low dose, fast acting tablets and confections. So candies, and then just pressed tablets, like a pill that you swallow. Consuming that, you can consume that anywhere, right? So it's not smokable product. And so I think there's going to be a lot of differentiation between beverages, tinctures, edibles, things that are not smokable, and then the limitations of what's smokable. I mean, plenty of people enjoy cannabis for, adult use and medicinal purposes, but hate smoking it, right? For their lung health, for the smell. So I think we're going to have to kind of think of it in two separate ways. What do you consume, and then what do you consume that's a smokable product?
Right. Somebody said, who is eligible to purchase? Can anyone buy it, or is it just 18 and
up? So there will be the age limitation to it, and I think it's 21 and up, actually. So yes, there will be an age limit to purchasing. The only way a minor can get cannabis is if they have a medicinal need for it. So they have to be in the medicinal program.
How can someone get a license to open a store?
That's going to be a long process.
I think a lot of people want to know that.
What I have learned being in this space now for a year and a half, almost 2 years, is you really need to think about, why do you want to own a dispensary? And what are you looking to get out of that experience? And are there other ways to be a part of this sort of larger industry that gets you some of those, some of those results, right? So maybe you're into marketing, maybe you're into, graphic design work, maybe your background is in, packaging, right? Just the sheer volume of materials that are needed to package products, run labels, do stickers. Maybe you're into security. So I think there's dozens and dozens of outlets that aren't plant touching licenses that people could get into, that are probably far more accessible. The big hurdle right now is, if you touch a cannabis plant, you can't get a federal loan, you can't get a bank loan, you can't get any kind of subsidy. So you've got to have either wealthy friends, or I don't know, wealthy parents or something, to cut into this, because you can't, it's not like opening up a restaurant where you could go to a bank and say, hey, I want a small business loan. Let's find a way to make this happen. So I would encourage people to think through, like, what's the goal for them?
Tons of opportunities in business around the cannabis space that's not directly selling it, right?
Exactly right.
Somebody's asking, is weed legal right now, or do we have to wait for another step for it to be actually legal, like in Amsterdam?
So that's an excellent question. This is only weed that is regulated product will be legal. So if you're still buying from the guy on the street on the illicit market, that is still illegal behavior, right? That is still an illegal sale. So it's really important to know that New Jersey didn't decriminalize all drugs. Oregon did that this past Tuesday.
Small amounts of cocaine, apparently.
Say again?
They decriminalized small amounts of cocaine, apparently.
They decriminalized small amounts of all drugs.
Yeah, crazy.
In Oregon, which, my background's in public health, and I've had lots of conversations with folks who've looked at Portugal, which has total decriminalization of all drugs. That's a bold step, and I think Oregon has the social service infrastructure to help kind of manage that. But that's a big step. So no, if you were buying illicit products from your buddy, that still remains illegal. One of the things many people, myself included, have said is, like, this is the beginning. This is not the end of this, right? We still need to deal with expungement. New Jersey has a wildly disproportionate rate of incarcerations and convictions and prosecution of people of color for doing the same thing, right? Consumption of cannabis is sort of even among races, and yet Black and brown people are incarcerated overwhelmingly more than white people. This bill didn't address that. This ballot question didn't address that. Like, there's a lot more layers to decriminalization, expungement, social justice that will come, I hope, in the weeks and months to follow.
Amazing. Are you allowed only like a certain amount on your person? Is there going to be like limits to how much you can carry with you?
So there'll be limits, like most states, about how much you can purchase at a time. And I think what groups like, I'm sure the ACLU and others will do, is a lot of education on, saving your receipts, saving your packaging. Don't buy, ounces and just dump it into a mason jar and have that as your stash, right? Because then someone can say, did you buy this legitimately? Where did you get this? There's gonna be a lot of...
So dealers now that sell weed, they're not out of a job. Like, they're still gonna be fine, right? How does it affect them?
I mean, arguably they're still doing illegal activity, right? With just as much risk. This cannabis will only be taxed at the sales tax level, this regulated product. You've seen in other states where the tax is incredibly high, that the illicit market is robust and thriving because there's so much tax on what you're buying at a dispensary. You're like, wait, why am I going to pay twice as much, right? There's going to be a lot of work around how to manage diversion and sort of and tamp down on the illicit market. The goal is to, eliminate the illicit market.
What does it mean for people who are currently incarcerated?
Like I just said, this means nothing, honestly, for people who are currently incarcerated. And there's going to be, I hope, a big push to work to do more to address that. Cook County in Chicago worked with a group called Code for America. They're a bunch of tech guys and gals who wanted to help government get technology right. They were sort of born out of the collapse of the ACA website, the Affordable Care Act website, all those years ago. And what they did is they found the way to basically write an algorithm to scrub the records of people. So if you had a nonviolent drug offense and it was captured electronically, so more recently, it expunged those records basically with the person having to do very little. You have other states where they have expungement programs, but they're incredibly onerous, right? Tons of paperwork. You still got to get a lawyer. So you can get your records scrubbed, but it's this huge, process to do it. I hope New Jersey looks at what's going on in places like Illinois and best practices of how to make this as easy for people to get their records cleared.
Will CBD places be able to sell it, or like does that change their business model?
They'll have to apply for dispensary licenses just like anybody else. I imagine that they will see an uptick in sort of their paraphernalia, right? Like pipes, wrapping paper, rolling papers, all the different things that people use to consume. They'll probably see an uptick in. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't know is if you overconsume THC, right? Whether it's in an edible that's way too strong or you just smoke too much, you can actually negate the high. You can bring yourself back down closer to normal by consuming CBD. And so I wonder if some of our friends who are running CBD spaces will sort of like educate and leverage around that to say, hey, it's a good idea if you're experimenting with cannabis for the first time or you haven't done this in a long time, of which there'll be tons of people, right, who are not traditional consumers. And I think there's a space for like that for the CBD crowd, but no, they'll have to apply for a dispensary license just like anybody else.
Amazing. Anything else that we didn't cover that people should know?
Be careful. It's not legal to just like smoke a joint on the street on January 1st. So make sure, that you're paying attention to what's happening, especially those who unfortunately are targeted, Black and brown folks, young men.
You can't just go around smoking weed everywhere now.
You can't just go around smoking weed everywhere. We are not Amsterdam. You can't even do that in places like Colorado, right? There are going to be rules to what we do and how we do it. So
I don't know. I have a feeling like in Jersey City, people are going to be like,
well, yeah, no, I think it's, I just want people to be safe about what they're doing, be responsible about what they're doing, and not inadvertently put themselves, between them and law enforcement, because we're not Amsterdam. But I don't think we'll ever be Amsterdam, honestly. But yeah, I'm excited to talk with you. I'm excited to do more stuff like this. It's going to be, a huge educational push, right? Because there's just as many folks who've been consuming on the illicit market, and then there's tons of folks. I mean, like my mom, right, for her arthritis.
It sounds too complicated to like go the legal route, because it's the same. It's kind of like the same. It's like I feel like it's the same, but just now I could like buy it at a store, dispensary.
Well, I think it's the same as it could be the same if you don't care what you're getting, right? And you just want flour. But I think what we're seeing is in places where, lotions, topicals, patches, edibles, like legit good, not going to wreck you and you're going to be high for 8 hours and be miserable type edibles. Most people hate those, right? Who has time to be like wrecked for that long? Nobody likes that feeling. So I think that's for me what's exciting, right? Like, how do we get at, and that's why I joined the company I joined. How do we deal with anxiety and pain and insomnia? This is the year of the anxiety. Like, this is the year of the panic attack, right? Like, has anybody survived 2020 without like really digging into their mental health, right? Because it's just been so tough. And so I'm excited to try to thread that needle and show people that there's more than just what you're getting from your dealer on the street. And there's a lot of products that you can bring into your life to just make your life better, as opposed to getting you high. People who want to get high, that you're entitled to do what you want to do. But I think there's a whole.
You guys have products that help with sex, focus,
We do.
activity.
Yeah.
Can you send me like a sample of each?
When you come to Colorado or Oklahoma, we are excited to potentially be here, because I think our mindset has been, most people don't want to have to know the levels of THC, what a terpene is, indica, sativa. Like, they don't know, right? Like, they don't want to know. They want a feeling. They want to have better sex, get a better night's sleep, work, have more cognitive focus. So all of our products are designed around, how do you want to feel today, as opposed to how high do you want to get? Because plenty of people don't walk into it with that mindset. They want to feel better.
Right.
And there's been studies that show that, right? Like, in most of the Western states that have adult use markets, 60+% of the people walking in the door are walking in to tackle something, not to get high. Most of it's pain and anxiety, right? And cannabis is the way that they help to manage those conditions. So for me, it's not just, it's not just the Saturday night, it's the Monday morning, it's the Thursday afternoon, it's the, how does your life get better with the use of this little plant?
I love it. Wow, this was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to.
We'll stay in touch for sure.
Totally.
Keep posted.
I hope we get a license. We'll do lots of cool stuff up in Jersey City and Hoboken.
You do. I really do.